Square roots of non-perfect squares, practice. 1. What are the two closest perfect squares and their square roots for the given square root? Squares and square roots. The two closest perfect squares to 12.3 are 9 and 16. The square root of 9 is 3, and the square root of 16 is 4. The two closest perfect squares to 67.2 are 64 and 81. The square root of 64 is 8, and the square root of 81 is 9. The two closest perfect squares to 117.8 are 100 and 121. The square root of 100 is 10, and the square root of 121 is 11. Two. What is the approximate value of each square root to the nearest tenth? Use benchmarks to help estimate the answer. Do not use a calculator. For the square root of 30.8, the two closest perfect squares to 30.8 are 25, and the square root of 25 is 5, and 36, and the square root of 36 is 6. Use a number line to help solve. Put 5 and 6 on the number line. If the square root of 25 is 5, and the square root of 36 is 6, then the square root of 30.8 is about halfway between those two. So 5.5 would be a good estimate. So a good estimation for the square root of 30.8 would be 5.5. B. The square root of 4.4. The two closest perfect squares to 4.4 are 4, and the square root of 4 is 2, and 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. Put 2 and 3 on your number line. If the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 9 is 3, then the square root of 4.4 will just be slightly more than the square root of 4. So 2.1 would be a good estimate. So a good estimation for the square root of 4.4 would be 2.1. And C, the square root of 108.3. The two closest perfect squares to 108.3 would be 100, and the square root of 100 is 10, and 121, and the square root of 121 is 11. Put 10 and 11 on your number line. If the square root of 100 is 10, and the square root of 121 is 11, then the square root of 108.3 is slightly less than halfway between those two square roots. So 10.4 would be a good estimate. So a good estimation for the square root of 108.3 would be 10.4.